In March 2013, a petition to save Mona Vale Hospital was presented to Parliament. It was debated in a minimalist kind of way, but it was never read out. So the people of New South Wales have never had the benefit of hearing it. The undersigned petitioners asked the Legislative Assembly to 1. Secure adequate funding for the Mona Vale District Hospital to maintain in perpetuity all of its current and proposed inpatient and outpatient services at the Mona Vale site, and 2. To assess the feasibility of using the Mona Vale site as the site of the new Northern Beaches Level 5 hospital. It was signed by 11,864 Pittwater people.
I am Dr. Suzanne Daly. I have been a doctor on the Northern Beaches for 38 years. I'm still in practice in Newport. This petition was enthusiastically taken up by the petition. I think we had a 98% positive acceptance of it from my various helpers. The only person who refused to sign it to me personally was our Mayor, Jackie Townsend, because she was convinced that it was totally unnecessary. Rob Stokes was saving the hospital. I was invited along to a planning meeting back in April 2012 about the long-waited for Northern Beaches Hospital, and I was shocked to see that there was to be nothing left at Mona Vale except community facilities, and that Manly Hospital was to be sold. So when I saw that maternity was not going to be at Mona Vale, I stood up and I clarified it with the midwives from Manly. They were very happy about French's Forest because at that stage they thought it was going to be public and they were to run it. So I also clarified about accident and emergency, to be told it was basically going to be a medical centre. So I was aware that the ambulance station at Avalon was not operating. Ambulances were there but they were never manned, and that was a big problem. I immediately made an appointment to see my local member, Rob Stokes. He expressed surprise about the loss of facilities that were planned for Mona Vale. But in subsequent meetings with him, I think he really knew all along. He expressed a bit of upset at signing a cheque for $1.2 million for a building he knew was going to be demolished. So this is back in 2012. That building has been planned to be demolished. A lot of the money to actually build the building was raised by the community, and a lot of the equipment has been raised by wonderful members in the local community who are very passionate about their local hospital. I then realised it was a matter of urgency. These plans were about to get underway. So I embarked on a petition. I sent a copy of the petition to Rob Stokes' office to make sure it was legal, with a lot of help from people in the community, and none of us of my generation were on Facebook back in those days. It was virtually a door knock. We had petitions at market days. As soon as I had the necessary 10,000, I actually ended up with 11,860 something signatures. I made an appointment with Rob Stokes. I handed him the petition, and he said, well, he didn't really want to give it in at that moment because it would be too rushed, and he really wanted his colleagues to really consider the matter. So at that stage I trusted him to do the right thing, and I heard no more about it. The stamp on it says it was presented to Parliament, the Clerk of Parliament, in March the following year. So there was already a delay of 5 months. It was finally heard in May. A contingent of Northern Beaches residents, including myself and various patients, one man of 96, made the effort to get into Parliament. We arrived at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday afternoon. There was not one member in Parliament sitting. There was a bill being read and nobody was listening. So at 4:30 duly the bells were rung and in walked Mr Stokes, one Liberal colleague, one Independent and 2 Labor members. Mr Stokes got up, he presented the petition, he did not read it out. So the voices of the people have not been heard on this issue. I was very disappointed. He spoke for a few minutes. He rabbited on about his plans for what he was going to do with the Mona Vale Hospital site. I subsequently got a letter from the Health Minister about what her plans were for the Mona Vale site. The other Liberal member just patted Rob Stokes on the back for the good job he did. The opposition spokesman for Labor, whom I think was a Dr. McDonald, stood up and said, well, really, they've stolen their wonderful idea to have this wonderful new hospital. It was just stolen from Labor. And he looked at us in the public gallery and he said, well, you people on the northern beaches, you don't know what you want or what you need. Only we politicians know what needs to be done. As a government, we do need to look after the people who, through no fault of their own, need care. I'm very concerned that there is a grey area over just how many public beds will be in the new hospital and how much operating time will be given for public operations. And it's really strange. I know of no waiting lists in any private hospitals for surgery, but we all know of the waiting list for public beds already. The present building is to be bulldozed. And Rob Stokes knew that back in 2012. And a private facility was going to be invited to be there, and it's only now he has admitted that they've called for tenders to run a private facility. And if they'd spent half the money they've spent in planning, it could have been renovated and rebuilt. Well, Bob Stokes told me back in 2012 that he had commissioned an inspection and he was told the building was totally unsound.
Well, the concrete's perfect. You couldn't find fault with it. Looking at the building, the only reason you could justify pulling this building down is to build a bigger and better hospital. That's the only true justification you could have.
However, he still wrote a cheque for $1.2 million to have one floor of it refurbished. So I don't understand that. Okay. And why can Bankstown be refurbished? It's older than Mona Vale. According to best practices from the World Health Organization, a proper accident service has to have an operating theatre available and an anaesthetist available, and this applies for maternity services too, and it has to be accessed by transport 30 minutes. You can't get to French's Forest from Palm Beach in 30 minutes, even at 2 o'clock in the morning. With obstructed labour, you have to get that baby out in 20 minutes. You cannot transport a woman with obstructed labour to anywhere in 20 minutes. So even though I support natural birthing and a birthing centre, I could not support just having that on a site in Mona Vale without the backup of an operating theatre with an anaesthetist available. The same applies for true emergencies. One of our landscapers at once over the years cut his femoral artery and was resuscitated in Mona Vale. He would have died. So there are many instances in the public have knowledge of. Children with asthma. I myself have had to resuscitate 2 people waiting for an ambulance. CPR for half an hour before the ambulance came. So it does happen, and you need it within half an hour, not in the never. People with heart attacks, strokes, they need urgent attention within a half an hour. That is a best practice put out by the World Health Organization. Well, I think the way it's operating at the moment is very good. We've got a birthing unit with backup care for obstructed labour. I'd like to see that maintained. We have a very active paediatric unit, and we actually have one of the highest primary school enrolments in the whole state, if not the country, and Rob Stokes is aware of that. But when the statistics were gathered for the Senate inquiry that put pressure on the then Labor government to get services back at Mona Vale, since then we've already had a 25% increase in population, and I think with the proposed new development there's going to be another 20%. And there's still no plans to do anything with Wakehurst Parkway. And it was interesting because I went to Rob and I said, well, what are you going to do when the parkway shuts for rain? He said, oh, that hardly happens. You're all right, you know, got your private helicopter organised, haven't you? And then what about the fact that if the weather's inclement and the parkway's flooded, how can helicopters fly? After I saw the plan for French's Forest, I believe it was never really about a hospital. It was about the redevelopment of French's Forest, taking the forest out of it and making it another Chatswood. I do believe people will die when the facilities go from here. I think we will have problems with births in car parks again. We will have a death down the track from obstructed labour. People who have having strokes and heart attacks, if the Wakehurst Parkway will be flooded. There are many situations I can see which could be fatal, even in a few years' time when Wakehurst Parkway is not flooded. With the increase in population and traffic, I believe people will die, because French's Forest is not accessible within 30 minutes from every part of the area.
I'm security.
Good on you.
Excuse me, are you filming me?
Yeah.
Can you stop doing that?
No. It's a public place.
Why are you team for you?
Because we're filming about Mona Vale, the future Mona Vale Hospital.
Okay, so you're really from that's what I'm doing?
Friends of Mona Vale.
Friends of Mona Vale.
Yeah.
Okay. And you just filming about what's going on here?
Yeah. Outside, the boundary, as you see.
That's okay, we know that. We just want to know who you are. So. Friends of
Who's we?
the management here.
I thought the management was the government.
Okay, so you're friends of Mona Vale Hospital? Yeah. Okay.
Sinister.
We've just had a security man come up and query our right to be here outside the hospital talking about the issues. Security has a big problem with the citizens expressing opinions. Government has a big problem with citizens expressing opinions. Rob Stokes regards people's opinions as populist and will override our opinions as populist in the view that they know better than the people.